Hi everyone, welcome to our podcast Speak Loud. My name is Michael and today I will be the host. We are a group of language students and in this first episode we are going to talk about phonetic and phonology. And today we are going to reflect on phonetic and phonology, not just definitions, but we are actually understood after studying this topic. So here we have to Maritza.
I think these topics are a little confusing to understand at first. Honestly, I thought that they were basically the same thing, but then I realized that they focus on different aspects.
Well, said here, but after the readings and discuss, I realized they focus on very different aspects of language.
Yeah, you're right, Jamileth.
Yes, in my case, what really helped me it was applying the concepts to create examples into just definitions.
Exactly, comparing how sounds are produced and how they function in the language makes a difference.
Yeah, but for me, phonetic becomes clear when I thought of it as something physical, something we can observe.
That's right. Like when we studied how the mouth moves when make a sound, that felt real, very concrete.
Well, phonology, on the other hand, felt more abstract because it's about how some organizes means.
Yes, you're right, Jamileth, especially when we talk about names and meaning.
For me, minimal words really help me to understand that's different.
Okay, let's move to our first question for the audience. It says, what was the most confusing part when you first studied phonetic and phonology?
For me, it was understanding that phonology isn't about how some are produced, but about how they function in a system.
Yes, I agree, and I was also confused about why two similar sounds could be considered the same phoneme.
Yeah. Something I found interesting is how phonetic is divided into articularity, acoustic, and then the auditory branches it has.
And what I like is that each one has a different stage. First, how we make a sound, then how it travels through the air, and finally, how we hear it.
Articulatory phonetics was the easiest for me because we could physically felt how sounds are produced.
In my case, Acuti's phonetics work was harder since it involved sounds, weights, and more technical explanations.
Well, auditory phonetics makes realize that listening is an active process, not a passive one.
Here's another question from the audience. It says, which type of phonetics do you think is the most useful for language learners?
I think articulatory phonetics is the most useful because learners need to know how to move their mouth correctly.
I agree, but I also says auditory phonetics is important, especially for improving listening skills.
Yeah, you're right. When it comes to phonology, I think the key concept is the phoneme.
A phoneme isn't just a sound, it's a sound that changes meaning.
Allophones were confused at first because they sound different but don't change meaning.
And once I understood that they depend on context, it became clearer.
That helped me stop worrying about small pronunciation difference.
Okay, this another question says, why are minimal pairs important for understanding phonology?
Well, minimal pairs show how changing just one something completely change meaning. And what do you think?
But for me, they also help learners become more aware of sounds that they don't exist in the first language, like Spanish.
Yes.
Well, another useful topic is the connected speech.
Oh yes, because in real life we don't speak word by word. Everything connects.
Processes like assimilation and addition explain with English sound different when spoken fast.
Yes, and that helped me to understand why listening is often more important than reading.
Especially for learners because reading and spoken English don't always match.
Okay, I also think super-segmented features are essential in this topic.
Strokes can completely change meaning in English.
Yeah, that's right.
Reading the most interesting because English sounds very different from Spanish.
And in my case, intonation stood out to me because it shows emotion and information.
Well, it really shows that communication is more than just words.
Well, I think after studying this topic, I feel phonetic and phonology are essential for language learning.
And I agree, especially for improving pronunciation in English.
And for understanding native speaker.
Also, from a teaching's perspective, this knowledge is very valuable.
We can explain why pronunciation to words and the way it does, not just correct mistakes.
Well, I think we have last question from the audience, which is, how will this knowledge help you in your future as a language teacher?
It will help me explain pronunciations in clear and more scientific way.
And in my case, it will make me more patient and aware of learning difficulties.
Well, classmates, so overall, we move from memorizing definition to really understanding how sounds work.
Phonetics and phonology complement each other.
Yes, one focus on physical production and the other on mental organization.
Well, I think both are necessary because it's important for a speaker language.
Well, this topic really changed how we see pronunciation and communications.
Well, classmates, I think that was all for today.
Yes.
Well, dear audience, that's all for today, and we hope you can see in the next episode of our podcast, Speak Loud. So, classmates,
Thanks for listening our podcast.